What's going on, everybody? We got another edition of the Coast to Coast podcast. This is week 8. We're going to do a little mid-season kind of breakdown, give you guys your top players, surprises, duds, and then the fantasy team of the year. I'm Carson. We got Liam in the cut. What's up, bro?
Nothing much. Just chilling out here.
And then we got Jose. How you doing, buddy?
Freezing, low key, bro. Got the Christmas spirit in the back. It's all good.
What's it like in Oregon right now? Is it negative?
Let me see. It is 55.
Oh, that's not bad. Hey, freezing for us NorCal kids though.
Yeah, but at night it'd be like 30. Sometimes it'd be like 20 something.
Okay, yeah, I feel dumb for saying negative, but I know it does get hella cold up there.
Maybe like in January it'll be negative.
Yeah, facts. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to go over the top players by positions for PPR. So let's start with the quarterbacks. I'm just going to run through the top 5 so far, just total points. We're not going by averages. So number 1 quarterback, we got Patrick Mahomes. No surprise here. Number 2, Russell Wilson. Number 3, Kyler Murray. Number 4, Josh Allen. And then number 5, Tom Brady, the ageless wonder. What do you guys think about that? Let's start with Jose. What do you want to tell us about this ranking? Any surprises? Any anything that sticks out to you?
I mean, Tom Brady definitely was not drafted as a top 5 QB, so he's putting on for the old heads. But Josh Allen, really misleading top 4, kind of a disappointing top 4. Really hope he turns the season around starting this Sunday.
Yeah, so
Liam?
To kind of get into this, I feel like Patrick Mahomes is having the most underrated season in football right now. He's given overshadowed by Russell Wilson just because Russell Wilson's playing with DK and Tyler and those guys are going off. I mean, let's read Patrick Mahomes' actual stats. He's got 2,315 passing yards for 21 touchdowns and 1 interception, while MVP frontrunner Wilson has 6. He also got 165 yards on the ground and 2 TDs, and he has a 7-1 Chiefs in first place in their AFC West. So I think that's a good thing to look at. Also, Kyler Murray has 7 rushing touchdowns on 437 yards, I mean, you expect Lamar Jackson to be having those stats, but Lamar is far from that this year. And then what Jose was saying, I mean, looking at Josh Allen's last 4 games, he's got 12.46, 16.38, 15.08, and 16.32, while his average is 22.45. So he's been playing really under average, like under what he's expecting, but going against a Seahawks secondary that is allowing the most points to fantasy wide receivers. Expect Diggs, expect Beasley, expect Brown to be going off this game.
Yeah, I mean, we got kind of the usual suspects, like you said, I think Mahomes, we've just been expecting, this is what we expect from him now, coming off a Super Bowl MVP and an MVP before that. This is just what he does, and he's putting up the fantasy numbers to prove it. And Kyler Murray, I think it's awesome to just see him in the top 5 because that's someone that I loved coming in this season. And, ESPN, a lot of other sites and myself were kind of dubbing him like this year's version of Lamar Jackson. And he's lived up to that, in every sense of the way. So that's awesome to see. So let's move on to the running backs. We're going to do the top 8 instead of the top 5. So sitting number 1, Kamara. No surprise there. We got Dalvin Cook at 2, Henry, Zeke 4, James Robinson 5, Kareem Hunt 6, Todd Gurley 7th, and then Mike Davis finished off at number 8. What do you have to say about this, Liam? What are you feeling with this list?
I mean, I think the first thing you got to point out is Mike Davis has fallen way down. With Christian McCaffrey coming off the IR this upcoming week, expect Mike Davis to be probably irrelevant in that offense. I expect Christian McCaffrey to break his way into probably top 15 territory despite missing all out of the season. But looking at kind of what this RB list was doing, I was thinking about it the other day. It's kind of surprising to think what's going to happen next year at fantasy. Who's going to be the back that's going to be taking number 1 off the board? Is Kamara going to go off the board first? Is it going to be Cook? Is it going to be Christian McCaffrey still? Is people going to put stuff in Saquon? Who knows? And then, obviously the big surprise is James Robinson. Not the greatest rushing stats, but he's been getting a lot of receptions, and that's what's been helping him in his boost. But I think RB4, Ezekiel Elliott, Carson did in our league, you got to sell on this guy right now. I mean, sure, he's averaging 17.26, but especially going against its Pittsburgh defense that you saw what they did to Saquon week 1, I would sell stock on him instantly.
What about you, Jose? What do you think?
I mean, next year, I think with a healthy Dak, Zeke's definitely in that conversation for a top running back. I mean, you saw how effective he was with Dak in the offense. And he's still running back 4 despite having, a couple duds the past, 3 games, which shows how effective he was those first few weeks. But, yeah, James Robinson, obviously the biggest surprise of the year, the undrafted rookie of the year. But other than that, I mean, Kamara really turned around this season. Last season was kind of mid, but this season really stepped up and broke out as that receiving threat that they need. Hopefully he can keep up those receptions even with Michael Thomas coming back. But, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that Kamara, people were kind of scared to draft him at one point because he was threatening or holding out, and then, been anything but that. He's been awesome. Yeah, Kamara, Cook, Henry, they've been playing the top 3 running backs in the league right now. Like you guys said, I expect Zeke to fall and also Davis to fall. I think Aaron Jones, once he starts to get healthier, he'll move in that. And I think Josh Jacobs is someone that I think can really make a push into this top 8 in the second half of the season. 31 carries, 129 yards against Cleveland. 31 carries is insane volume. He's been getting that type of volume all season. Just the touchdowns haven't really been coming his way. But he's got the Chargers next, Denver, KC, Atlanta, the Jets. Very favorable schedule coming up, and so I expect him to move in. And it's also with Kareem Hunt. Seems to be probably the biggest bargain of the draft. This was a guy that was going in the 4th, 5th round, and you knew you were getting someone that still in the committee, but was still going to get a lot of work regardless with Chubb. And I think the storyline with him is still a viable RB2, best handcuff in the league. And if Chubb gets injured, he's going to be an RB1, and that's exactly what happened. He's been a great value, and it's dope to see Gurley back into kind of having a revival. I think a lot of people kind of wrote him off. I wrote him off for sure, and he's been awesome this year for sure. So let's go into the wide receivers. So 2 Seahawks on this list. We got Tyler Lockett, number 1, 53-point game, absolutely absurd. Ridley, number 2, Metcalf, number 3, Hopkins down to 4, Tyreek Hill at 5, Stephon Diggs at 6, Monte Adams at 7, and then Tyler Boyd at 8. I'll start with Jose with this time. Anything come to your head about this list?
I mean, Tyler Boyd definitely was not drafted as a top 8 receiver, and look what he's putting on for the Bengals and showing the power of that offense. But Tyler Lockett, he's number 1, but he's been really boom or bust all season. Had a couple of dud games and then a couple huge games. I think. But
when he booms, he booms.
Yeah.
Crazy.
If Lockett's eating, your team's eating. But if he's not, yeah. But Metcalf with a great breakout season, looking like the next Megatron out there. But yeah.
Ish. What about you, Liam?
So I think like Jose said, Tyler Lockett's not going to finish as wide receiver 1. I would bet several amounts of money on that he's not going to finish that. I think Calvin Ridley's going to fall off with Julio Jones' emergence, and it's going to be hard for DK to stay up there competing with so much snaps. I'd expect if I was making a prediction today, I'd say that if Devontae Adams is healthy and DeAndre Hopkins stays what it's doing, I think it's going to be between those two for wide receiver 1 this year. I mean, let's look at Devontae Adams' average. So Tyler Lockett is 21.21 of his average as wide receiver 1. Devontae Adams with 27.04 average on 43 receptions, 502 yards, and 7 TDs. 7 TDs puts him among the tied for first in this list of wide receivers. And like Jose was saying, I mean, Tyler Boyd, just what a great year to see from him. 54 receptions, 584 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And then kind of looking over to Tyreek Hill, it's kind of interesting to see where he is. I mean, him and DK are both under 40 receptions, 36 for DK and 35 for Tyreek. But, I mean, once we'll get into it next, you'll see why Tyreek Hill doesn't have the volume he has because of his teammates playing alongside with.
Yeah, I think Hill is – I mean, like you said about Mahomes, I think Hill's kind of flown under the radar as well because he hasn't had like this big, massive game, but he's been really consistent. Only one kind of dud at Buffalo with 5 points, but for the most part, he's been, at least getting like, 15 points and above the rest of the games, which is great to see. Yeah, and I agree with you 100% on the wide receiver one battle with Hopkins and Adams. I mean, the way Adams playing, I mean, the fact that he's wide receiver 7 when hasn't even, didn't play 3 games out of the season so far is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, who else is Rodgers going to throw to? That's his go-to guy. And yeah, also, yeah, great to see Boyd finally in there because he's been a guy that's really been kind of like a sleeper pick the last like couple of years. And it's great to see him kind of finally emerge, with the help of Joey Burrow. So next we got the tight ends. We're just going to do the top 5 with this. So tight end number 1, Kelsey, not really surprised there. He's been one of them, the most consistent players in fantasy the past few years. He's been awesome. Waller number 2, Kittle number 3, but sadly, that's going to change. Rest in peace, our boy Kittle. Rest in peace, the whole Niners team, just getting obliterated by injuries. T.J. Hawkinson at number 4, and then Robert Tonyan still sitting at number 5. So I'll start with Liam this time. What do you think about this list?
Well, I really like Travis Kelce this year. I mean, thinking about it, that's going to be the number 1 guy I'm targeting next year in fantasy. This guy is crazy. I mean, as much as I love Kittle, we aren't as much of a throwing offense as Kansas City is. I mean, 17.88 average. He's got 48 receptions, which compared to Tyreek Hill is 13 more. And he also has 610 yards to his 537 yards, but 6 touchdowns to his 7. But when it comes down to it, Travis Kelce is the one carrying that offense on the receiving end. And then Darren Waller, playing well. I mean, he wouldn't be wide receiver 2 if Kittle was still healthy, but good to see some production out of him. And then I know someone that Jose is probably going to touch on it, but I'll let him handle this one with T.J. Hawkinson. Really good year seeing what he kind of dudded last year, what we expected to see out of him from a rookie.
Yeah, I mean,
Jose?
Kelsey really making the case for taking a tight end in the top 3 rounds. I mean, normally I got kind of weighed on tight ends kind of, for the later rounds. Yeah, you didn't, but, Kelsey's definitely worth that 2nd, 3rd round pick with his production, almost 18 points per game. That's insane. That's more than most running backs. But Hawkinson, showing why he was drafted in that 1st round and why he was taken above his college teammate, Noah Fant, emerging as the tight end for as of right now. And I think he's really going to establish himself as one of these elite tight ends in his career.
Yeah, I think someone that has fallen off definitely the last few weeks, Jonnu Smith, who was sitting in that top 5 for at least the first half of the season. So it's been tough to see him kind of struggling and not get the same usage. But Hawkinson really just like blowing up. Still doesn't even get that much attention. But yeah, it's just this list is definitely dominated by Kelsey, who is a little over 40 points ahead of Waller at number 2. Just absolutely insane. He's one of the best fantasy investments. And yeah, so let's go over to
hold up.
Defense and special teams.
Wait, Carson.
What's up?
I just wanted to mention, I think that we should be putting some stock in. I think Robert Gronkowski could break into this top 5 over Tonyan. I mean, Tonyan got carried by what? I think he had like a 36-point outing when he had those 3 TDs. So I think Gronkowski's been getting that work in with Brady. So, I mean, unless Mike Evans is getting those red zone targets, a lot of TDs are going to be going to Gronk in the end zone.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, since week 6, 18.8, 17.2, 14.1 points. He's been playing really, really well, like almost like a close version of prime Gronk. Yeah, that's a good point. And also, I think it's also tough to see Mark Andrews kind of struggle. That's someone that I would really want to see in that top 5, maybe even that top 3. You think him, Kittle, Waller, or Andrews, but it's been tough to see not only just him struggle, but just kind of like the whole Ravens offense struggle fantasy wise. Okay, so let's move over to the defense and special teams. So our top 5, the Colts leading the way at number 1. Then you got the Steelers, the Buccaneers, the Ravens and the Chiefs, who aren't normally known for their defense, but have been on a really solid year this year. So, yeah, I'll start with Jose. What do you have to say about the defenses? A very kind of volatile position in fantasy, something that it's kind of hard to predict, but I think these 5 teams have been really, really consistent for the most part this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to kind of predict the defense each week. Definitely very volatile spot each week. But I think the Colts emerging, no one really thought the Colts this year would be the best defense. But definitely the Steelers defense has been carrying them this year. I think that was kind of a given before the season. But, yeah, I wouldn't look too much into defenses, though.
Yeah. Liam?
Yeah, so, I mean, I kind of wrote down some stats, what each defense is bringing in. I mean, first thing you got to look at is all these teams have at least 5 wins on the season so far. Looking at the Colts, the reason why they're up there, they got 4 touchdowns between their defensive and special teams, and they also have 11 interceptions on the year, which is good. Buccaneers, they got 1 touchdown, 11 interceptions. The Steelers, 2 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but we know the reason why they're getting so many points because they got this crazy defense with the run-stopping power, and they got the 2 edge threats of Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt, and also the interior of Stephon Tuitt and Cam Hayward. The Ravens, 3 TDs, 3 interceptions, which is kind of low, given that you got big play Marcus Peters out there and Marlon Humphrey and crew. And then the Chiefs with 3 TDs and 9 interceptions, and we know the reason why they're up there is because that crazy performance they had against the Broncos, where I think they dropped about 25 points or so. Just absolutely destruction. But, yeah, we'll see. Defensive number 5 for Chiefs might not be there for long.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Colts because they're 14th in sacks, but they're still number 1 total. Yeah, like you said, those 4 touchdowns helps a ton. And yeah, they've been balling, and they got a really young defense too, which I think is really important. They're going to be good for. Same with the Steelers. Those two, they're going to be, wrecking havoc in the AFC North and South for a long time to come. And finally, let's go to the kickers. So the kickers. So starting off, we got Randy Bullock from the Bengals. He's number 1. Younghoe Koo, who's been like a sensation this year. He's at number 2. Justin Tucker from the Ravens, number 3. Suckup from the Bucs at number 4. And then Will Lutz from the Saints at number 5. We'll just touch on this quickly. Koo, yeah, has just been really crazy because he's put up some massive weeks. I mean, like 20 points, 13 points twice, 17 points. I mean, that's like RB2, like, maybe even like RB1 numbers some weeks, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think he's been kind of the highlight so far from the kickers. But, yeah, what do you guys think?
I don't think there's much to say. I mean, as long as you have an accurate kicker, that's the only thing you got to pay attention to. You don't want to be losing points like Gostowski does for you sometimes.
It's tough to see Greg the Leg, kind of fall off. Every year he's always been like the top kicker, winning games for people some weeks. This year, not really doing great in that Cowboys offense.
Yeah, I think it's just, because the Cowboys offense is just like falling off a ton. But yeah, kickers, defense, those are positions that you can stream for the most part. Unless there's like you said, someone like Zerline who was actually like a really valuable asset, someone that was like putting up, like maybe like 8 to 10 points each week, and that that adds up. So next on our agenda, we're going to do the biggest surprise players of the season at each position. So we're going to start off with the quarterback. So Liam, you want to give us your biggest surprise from the quarterback so far?
Well, I actually have 3 written down, but we'll just tackle one of them. I think Tom Brady's definitely got to be on this list. Absolute crazy performance. I mean, let's just put a reference. In our league, he was drafted 137th overall, going to the really bottom end. I mean, let's look at some of the games he's had this year. 32.46 versus the Chargers, 36.86 versus Vegas. He's been putting up really good numbers for someone that people thought was, the whole system quarterback RB was coming out. But you guys got to realize that this is the greatest quarterback of our generation. This man it's hard to doubt this guy's. I mean, it's like same thing with LeBron James in basketball. Everyone thinks, he's going to fall off this year and so on and so forth. But Tom Brady's continuing to prove us that he is what we know him to be.
What about you, Jose?
Of course, I had my boy Justin Herbert. You know, in a season where no one expected him to be the long time or the full season starter, only missing one game and still being the QB 12, averaging nearly 25 points per game since becoming the starter. You know, it's ridiculous. Mahomes, his full season as a starter, he averaged 26. So I think he's, you know, it's testament to show how good Herbert has been this year. And in a season where nobody really drafted him, no one expected him to really do anything this year, at least not in the first 8 weeks like he has.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, him and his fellow, rookie classmate, Burrow, QB 11 so far. They've been balling. They've been proving that they're certainly worth those first round picks. Mine's been Ryan Tannehill. I mean, a guy that is kind of a basic, kind of safe pick, and someone that you probably wouldn't even really consider drafting in fantasy. But he's QB8 so far. Really solid games. I mean, 30 points against Buffalo, 28 points against Houston, 26 against Jacksonville. He's been a really, really solid option, which is really surprising. Liam, I want to hear who your other two were as well.
Oh, so I had Justin Herbert as well, and I put Joe Burrow on there. I mean, to see them come out there and get a win against the Titans was pretty impressive. Joe Burrow doesn't have the greatest line compared to what he had in LSU. And I mean, the good thing is he does have some good receiving talent. I mean, Auden Tate, someone that we probably won't ever talk about in fantasy-wise, but someone to kind of keep an eye on, just kind of more in the football realm, a player that's been going under the radar. I mean, and then obviously Tyler Boyd, who was able to crack into our top 8 receivers as number 8. He's got some good talent around him, and I know his top tight end did go out earlier in the season. So looking in the next year, if the Bengals are able to acquire another weapon and bolster up that offensive line, I would see the Bengals as possibly a top 10 offense next year. Bold prediction out here.
Yeah, definitely. They just got to get that line right. And I think they're going to be set up for a super action-packed offense. Going on the running backs, who are some guys that surprised you this year? Obviously, James Robinson's got to be the biggest surprise. That's like the gimme. That's the easiest one. So I think, any others?
I mean, we touched on it earlier, but Todd Gurley currently sitting at running back 7 with 8 touchdowns on the year. In a year where everyone, thought he was kind of done. His knee was out. Everyone thought he was probably going to retire soon. Like, he was over, but kind of proven to be still a capable workhorse back in the NFL.
Yeah, so I think that the most surprising person of the year, I also did have James Robinson and Todd Gurley on my list, but I feel like Myles Gaskin's going really underrated. I mean, coming out of Washington, most people didn't really expect much to come out of him. I mean, Burrito was looked at as an option there. Jordan Howard, they got in free agency. So he kind of went under the radar. I'm guessing no one drafted him. I would be surprised if anyone did. And then, he's been putting up 14.1 points. He's been getting a lot of receptions out there. And hopefully with when he returns back from injury, Tua can be able to dump some passes down to him and get some good PPR points for you guys.
Please.
Gaston balling. My guy is someone that I just did not pay attention to at all. I had given up on him from last season, how disappointing that was. But James Conner is someone that was kind of falling in that 4th, 5th round. That kind of like that. He's just. Yeah.
You broke up there a little bit. You lost connection.
Oh, really?
What were you saying?
How am I?
Yeah. You're good now.
Am I good right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'll just start from the beginning. James Conner is someone that I just did not give any mind to at all. Just based off last season, was just so disappointing. And he was kind of getting drafted in that RB kind of black hole, where it's him, Gurley, Bell, a lot of guys that are kind of injury prone or risky, but he's been really a great definition, like an RB2, someone that might not put up a crazy amount of points, but he's been since that week 1 dud on Monday Night Football, he's been really really good and really consistent since week 2, 20 points, 24 points, 15, 17, 14, 15, just been really, really consistent so far. I've been really surprised to see that from him. He's been a really good asset this season.
Also, don't forget. Also, don't forget Antonio Gibson. we didn't know what was going to go on that Washington backfield. I mean, we thought Darius Geis would be that back. Obviously, he had some legal troubles with the team. And then former Heisman potential candidate Bryce Love might have been seen as the number one back in that backfield. But Antonio Gibson, pick out of Memphis, was able to come out. And, I mean, he's up there with David Johnson and Melvin Gordon with his ranking this year, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, he's been awesome. That was someone that I read, Matthew Berry from ESPN. He hyped him up a lot during the preseason. Yeah, he's been awesome this year. Yeah, it's weird. Has Love been injured or anything? I haven't even seen anything from him.
I don't think he won the running back battle.
Yeah, they barely even used him. But, yeah, he's been getting some really, kind of workhorse numbers the last couple of weeks. So, moving on to the wide receivers, who are some guys that have surprised you this season?
DK Metcalf. I mean, nobody really – at least I didn't expect him to come out and be a wide receiver one. He's already matched his touchdown total from last year with 7, and currently sitting at wide receiver 3, averaging almost 21 points a game. And, hitting that almost at least – I think he's hit at least 19 points a game in every game except one. So, yeah, and I definitely didn't expect him to break out like this.
Yeah, I would say Travis Fulgham. I have an Eagles fan here on the floor here at University of Miami, and that's kind of all he likes to talk about. But it makes sense. Travis Fulgham's really been the power for this offense. You expect that. They drafted Jalen Reagor to be that receiver threat that was supposed to replace Deshaun Jackson. Alshon Jeffrey's been out. Zach Ertz has been a disappointment, and Dallas Goedert just returned from injury. But it seems like Travis Fulgham's going to have himself a future there in Philly.
Yeah, Fulgham's really just emerged as their wide receiver one. He's been had some massive games this season. One guy that has been doing really great so far that showed a lot of really good flashes on terrible Jets teams over the last couple of years. But kind of went under the radar during the offseason is signing Robbie Anderson, wide receiver 11, kind of like Connor, someone that won't put up a ton of points. 20, he had 25 in week 1, but won't put up a crazy number, but just been really, really consistent. He's been double digits, week 1 through 7, double digits in every week, which is actually pretty rare. Considering how random, how unpredictable, especially this season's been. And he's been nothing short of consistent. Another guy that I have, Will Fuller. Someone that like Robbie, he showed his flashes. Him and Watson showed they have a great connection. Seems like a couple weeks out of the year, and the rest of the time he's battling injuries. But he's been awesome. Besides week 2, just been putting up a ton of points, kind of switching off from about 12 to 15 points, and the next week he'll put up points in the 20s. It's been awesome to see him finally put together a really solid fantasy season, and I'm glad because in one of my leagues I just took a flyer on him. I desperately needed a wide receiver 2 or 3, and he's been awesome for me. So moving on, we got the tight ends. Been a kind of weird year for tight ends. There's just been a ton of guys popping up with big games every now and then. Who are some of the surprises for you guys? I'll start with Jose.
I touched on it earlier, but Hawkinson, obviously, he's got no games under 9 points. And I think definitely after that Colts game last week in which, pretty much every analyst was saying to bench him because the Colts were the best team against tight ends, and he still managed to go out there and catch seven receptions. So I think he's definitely a must starting forward, and, he's matchup proof at this point.
I would have to say my biggest surprise is Jimmy Graham. I saw a lot of analysts saying it was one of the worst signings of the offseason with the Bears acquiring Jimmy Graham. But, let's take a look at it. He's tight end 9. He's been a good red zone threat for them. He had a big game against Atlanta, 24 points. But, it's been solid for – I did not expect this out of him. We know that he is far from the person that he used to be with Saints, with Drew Brees' number 1 target, but I've liked to see that he's been doing well, and it's good to see as a supporter of Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, those are 2 guys that I was going to mention as well. Dalton Schultz was someone that I think was really trending in the direction that I think could have been included on this list. But, with everything that's been going on with the Cowboys, he's been, struggling ever since he was putting up some solid numbers. Okay, so now we got done with our surprises, the biggest duds of the season. There's been a lot of them. There's been a lot of them everywhere. So I'm going to start with you, Liam. Who's been your big duds from the core?
I mean, I'm not going to take the obvious one here, but I'm going to take someone that I just absolutely hate as a quarterback. Just kind of overall, it doesn't even matter about fantasy. I think Baker Mayfield needs to lead the Browns. He's the reason why they're not where they should be. I mean, Kevin Stefanski is doing a great job there at coach. I mean, what we've seen from Burrow, what we've seen from Herbert in their first few games, Baker can only do that if he's playing against the damn Bengals, for Pete's sake. But I think they need to get rid of him. I mean, take a flyer on Mac Jones, take a flyer on Trey Lance, take a flyer on some quarterback in this draft. I don't think he's the answer. He's the reason why this Browns team's not winning. Get off the damn progressive commercials, Baker.
Jose?
I mean, Lamar Jackson, drafted as the QB1 this year, and that some people took him in the second or third round. Currently sitting at QB12, and he's only topped 20 points in 3 out of 7 games. Just not a great season from him. I don't know what it is. He hasn't had a single game with above 300 passing yards. He's just not progressing as a player. After we seen him with his MVP season last year, we expected him to come out and just be balling this year, but it seems like the league has kind of got him figured out.
Yeah, that's definitely been – it's probably got to be one of the biggest duds in general, just because of where he's being drafted. He was a guy that was going and, he probably wasn't even going to fall out of the third round. One guy that I was definitely had some interest in going into the season was Danny Dimes. He was getting Saquon back. He was getting, all his offensive weapons back, and, him, certainly Slayton, you got Ingram, and it's just been, more of the same from the Giants. I mean, sadly, Saquon got injured and he wasn't able to have that weapon, but, the rest of their receivers just been getting injured all over the place. But, I thought, he showed really good flashes last season and, with his running ability as well. And he's just been putting up duds, and he's a turnover machine. And next up, we'll go to the running backs. We touched on a few weeks ago. I got to start with Kenyon Drake. I mean, that's someone that I was nervous about going in the draft, but someone that, did have some boom potential considering the high-powered offense, how he finished the season last year. And, it's been nothing but terrible, unless you start him against the Cowboys, but you should start everyone against the Cowboys. So that's mine. What about you, Jose? Who's been your biggest dud?
I got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's currently sitting as the running back 10 this year, but he was drafted as a top 10 pick and as a top 5 running back. And, just because of this year's, scoring has been really low, but most people expected him to be kind of like a Kareem Hunt type of running back in this offense. But he's only averaging 14 points per game, which last year would have put him at the running back 16. So just not the production we expected from him. Definitely this offense has kind of shied away from the running game as much as they have. But yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire not putting up the numbers we expected.
Yeah, so I was doing some math off camera for this one. I thought you guys should know this. I think Josh Jacobs has been a bust. I mean, I think he's got some future ahead of him in this week, but he has not been playing well. So, I mean, as much as we were hyping, I mean, he was drafted in the first round of our league, but he's a very touchdown-dependent back, and I just did some math on here. In games where he has no touchdowns scored, he averages 10.42 points, which puts him below Darrell Henderson, Kenyon Drake, Chase Edmonds, basically the same level as Devin Singletary, and below Naheem Hines, tons of backs. It's stupid. I mean, he's someone that doesn't catch passes out of the backfield, which is like Derrick Henry, but I mean, he's not the kind of force that Derrick Henry is. So hopefully he starts getting some more touchdowns here in the next few weeks, but If he's not getting you a 100-yard game and he's not getting you a touchdown, he's kind of useless right now.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I mean, I still have some hope for him just because he gets a ton of volume. But yeah, you made a great point because he's boomed a couple of times, but he's been, had a ton of busts over the season. I think one guy that I was looking at that on a definitely a much smaller level, but I think someone that held a lot of value in my eyes before the season, I think was J.K. Dobbins. I mean, this was a guy that was gonna be splitting a committee with him and Ingram, and then a little bit of Edwards. And my kind of thought process was, if Ingram gets injured, it should be the Dobbins show. He should kind of turn into their workhorse back. It's a run heavy offense, but he's been a guy that probably isn't even on your team anymore. You probably dropped him. I mean, not now because Ingram actually been out, but even with him out, he never had any crazy games, and he's been really disappointing because I thought I had a potential like league winner in him, someone that with the right opportunity could go off, but he's been really disappointing. So going on to the wide receivers. What's up?
Who knows? He might be able to turn it around now with Ingram out. And, they seem to give him more touches now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been a little bit more hopeful, but I just can't really trust that offense anymore. We haven't really seen much from them. I mean, let's see. I'll have to take a look at the schedule. Let's see who they got coming up. Well, okay, Indy, New England, they should kind of roll through. Tennessee,
They play Pitt again.
Pittsburgh. They do have Dallas coming up, so that'll be pretty dope. But yeah, kind of solid schedule. But anyways, so let's go over to the wide receivers. Probably the biggest boom or bust position in all of football. You never know what you're gonna get sometimes unless it's a really consistent guy like a Hopkins, like a Metcalf this year. But yeah, what do you guys think? I'll start with Liam. Or I don't even know who I started with last time.
I'll go. I got it. So, I feel like someone that needs to be mentioned is Mr. Stephon Gilmore killer, Devontae Parker. He's wide receiver 33 this year. I mean, as much as we're dogging on Juju Smith-Schuster, he's below Juju Smith-Schuster. He's below San Francisco rookie Brandon Ayuk. He's below Darius Slayton. I mean, it's kind of sad to see because you really saw him break out last year. I mean, he had that big game to end the year, but sad to see. So hopefully he starts to turn it around. And then another person else threw on my list was Marquise Brown. Like we're saying, this Ravens offense, you can't trust anyone on there. I mean, it's fine if you have Lamar Jackson, try and sell him if you can try and get rid of him. But I mean, it seems like Marquise Brown is either goes off or he's not much of a receptions guy. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same exact two guys, Juju and Hollywood Brown. It seems like Hollywood Brown, even when he does, get the touchdown or does get the big play, he's still not putting up that great numbers. I think the most put up this year was against Cincinnati, 6 for 77 and a touchdown, which he still didn't even top 20 points. So currently sitting at wide receiver 42. Looked at as a guy that was going to be the wide receiver one of this offense, and has not done anything. But recently expressed his discontent with the team on Twitter, and hopefully things turn around for him. Same thing with Juju. Currently sitting at wide receiver 29, drafted as a top 10, 12 receiver. But he's been outshined this season by guys like Claypool and at times even Deontay Johnson or Eric Ebron's been pretty good for them as well.
Yeah, Hollywood Brown, as someone that drafted Hollywood Brown, thinking that, wide receiver one and a high-powered offense, just been really disappointing. A guy I had who I think was even ranked ahead of Metcalf on the pre-draft boards, DJ Chark, who, the emergence of, a couple more receivers like Chanel, Keenan Cole, and then obviously James Robinson, who's a massive part of that offense. He's, one big week against Cincinnati, he had, 30 points. But I think besides that, where you drafted him, he's wide receiver 47. I definitely wasn't getting drafted like that. He's definitely getting drafted at least top 20. And just a kind of testament to, the Jaguars and their struggles. But it's been tough to see him, especially because he was so awesome last year. Kind of one, one of the best waiver pickups from last year, and it's been tough to see him not really even be a factor this year. So moving on to the tight ends, which a ton of dud potential in this right now. So I'll start with you, Jose. Who's been your biggest bust so far from the tight ends?
Someone that I definitely did not trust preseason, that I never really understood the hype behind, Tyler Higbee, drafted as a top 7 tight end, and he's only top double digits once, which was in week 2. Other than that, he's sitting at tight end 16, averaging 9 points per game. He's been outplayed by guys like Jimmy Graham, Rob Tonyan, and Dalton Schultz, which are all undrafted players. I never understood the hype behind Tyler Higbee. I mean, yeah, the Rams, like, they can really go off some weeks, but I not a good season.
Yeah.
Okay, so the person I would have on my list is Greg Olsen. I mean, coming from Aussie at the U here. I mean, God love Greg Olsen. But, I mean, seeing the production that we saw of Jacob Hollister last year, the production we saw of Will Dissly, I mean, even though Olsen is old, he's still a good tight end. And to see that he hasn't put up he's put up one game over 10 points. And that was when he had a touchdown in week 1. And he's been pretty – he did have 11.1 points against Dallas. But still, I expected more out of him seeing the production we're seeing out of Will Dissly. But, I mean, it's been taken away by those 2 stud wide receivers out there for the Seahawks.
Yeah, definitely. I mentioned the Philly tight ends real quick. Ertz and Goddard, 2 guys that I think had a lot of stock coming in. It's just been tough to see them not only, be plagued with injuries, but even when they have been healthy, they've struggled a lot. Obviously, I mentioned Danny Dimes, and I think a big part of why he could have been good this year was Ingram. But before that, I've never really trusted him, and he's been a dud too. This was a guy who's like top 5, top 6 tight end. He's tight end 14, and then Austin Hooper, who is someone that was great last year. I forgot what he placed, but I think he's definitely
top 5.
Yeah, top 5. He was great last year in Atlanta. And I thought coming over to the Browns, I know he's going to get less targets because of how many great players they have on their offense, but at least expecting a top 10, because it's really not that hard to get in the top 10 for tight ends. Not putting up that many points as a whole at the position, but tight end 25. He's been battling some injuries, but definitely expected a lot more from him and a lot more, red zone targets, and someone that I think would be kind of like a safety net for Baker in the short passing game. And it's been disappointing for him.
Yeah, he might bounce back with Odell Beckham out, but Harrison Bryant's been doing well in his absence, so good thing to know.
Yeah, exactly. That's another factor that it's like, you got Bryant in there. You still got Njoku, kind of lurking in the depth chart. So, yeah, not much hope for Hooper. And then finally, the fantasy team of the year. If you have at least 2 or 3 of these guys, you're probably in a really good position in your league. These guys have all been going absolutely insane. So start off so far, QB1, Russell Wilson, 29-point average, and then RB1, Kamara with 27 or almost 28 points a game. RB2, Dalvin Cook, almost 27 points. Wide receiver 1, Tyler Lockett, big, huge reason why Russell Wilson is the number 1 QB. He's at 21 points a game. Wide receiver 2, Calvin Ridley, 18 points a game. Tight end 1, Kelsey with almost 18. And then the Colts, number 1 defense at about 12 points. And then for kickers, both Bullock and Koo, who have both been really, really awesome this year. Bullock with 10 points a game, Koo with almost 12 points a game. So, Liam, I'll start with you. What stands out on this list? Is this kind of, the general perception of who you thought might be the fantasy team at the end of the year, or at least at the midway point?
Yeah, I mean, let's look at Russell Wilson. I mean, he's on track for 4,300 yards, 42 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. he's been playing super well this year. I mean, as much as I was talking about Patrick Mahomes earlier, Russell Wilson just seems to have, like, he's got the juice this year. He's MVP favorite. I mean, it will be interesting to see because he does play in a very hard division to see what happens, like, when they go against the Rams, when Jalen Ramsey's locking up one of those guys. But the thing is, one of the other guys is going to be open. One of those guys is getting guarded by cornerback too. So that's something to see. And then, like I was talking earlier, no one's passing Travis Kelce. I would bet my money on it unless he gets injured. Please, let's hope that doesn't happen. So,
yeah. What about you, Jose?
I mean, definitely consensus with QB. Running backs aren't too much of a surprise, but I don't really like the wide receivers. At least I don't like Lockett. I'd rather go with a guy like Hopkins, averaging almost 21 points per game, and he's only got one game under double digits and only 2 games under 20 points, which is kind of insane to even say. But and then for my wide receiver too, I had Stephon Diggs, averaging 18 points per game, and he has not a single game under double digits. So I know Ridley got hurt, and he also had that one goose egg that he laid. So yeah, Stephon Diggs would be my wide receiver 2 this year.
Yeah, I think Metcalf also has a chance to definitely, especially after the crazy game he came off. I think he has a chance to move in there. Devontae Adams as well, the way he's been playing. Hopkins is as consistent as they come. It's kind of crazy. There hasn't really been that many surprises. There's not really someone that none of us really didn't expect to be in here. I mean, all these guys, or besides the 2 wide receivers, Wilson was getting drafted as a top 3, top 5 quarterback for his position. Kamara and Cook were 2 of the first running backs to go, not only just for running backs, but just in the draft in general. Kelce, he's been number 1 in his position for, who knows how many years now. Lockett and Ridley, though, definitely surprising because, we didn't see, any of the main wide receivers that were getting drafted first. These were guys that were going in the, 4th, 5th, 6th round that have been playing awesome this year. I like your pick with Diggs. It just sucks that he's been kind of falling off. Just the whole Bills offense has been falling off a little bit, but that's someone that I think I would throw in the consideration as well. But, yeah, a lot of, not really too many big surprises here. Ridley, I was surprised that Ridley's, been doing as good as he's been doing. I knew he was going to be, really great and kind of a steal. But I was not expecting, wide receiver 1, overall 1 territory for him. Yeah.
We shall see.
So, all right. Anything else you guys want to
add? Be aware for this game tonight against the 49ers versus Green Bay. Trent Taylor's wide receiver 1 tonight, so that's going to be something interesting to see for us Giants fans. But I know Jordan Reed's back, and he played really well when there's injuries. And it's going to be interesting to see who the Niners go to their running back. Is it going to be Hasty or is it going to be Jerick McKinnon? Who knows? I mean, I expect it to be – I think it's going to be McKinnon tonight. I just have some weird feeling about that, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully Nick Mullins can surprise us, but at the same time, the Niners just need to look towards the future at this point with a lot of their offensive and defensive weapons out for the year.
Yeah.
Let's go Ducks this weekend.
Who are y'all playing?
Stanford.
This is week 1 of the Pac-12, right? I've not been following college at all. It's been too many people getting COVID, too, who's playing, who's not. It's too much.
We got the Friday game.
Yeah, I know you guys are doing really good. You guys are top
11.
10 now?
We're 11.
11?
But, I mean, it's going to be a big game for college sports scene. What's his name? The Bosco quarterback for Clemson. See if he can pull it off against Notre Dame. Is Notre Dame the real deal? We shall see because they haven't played much too crazy of a talent. I mean, they win it down against FSU earlier in the year, so we'll see. It's going to be a big game to watch this weekend.
Yeah. I just want to touch on the Thursday game real quick. Yeah, I guess because honestly, it seems like a new running back for the Niners every time, so that makes sense with McKinnon. Hasty got a ton of pickups. Literally, I think the only real star that's healthy is Adams between both those teams. Everyone on the Niners is obliterated. Jones, might not even play. So it's really just going to be Adams and Rodgers and then a bunch of, second and third stringers everywhere. It's sad. That was our NFC Championship last NFC Championship game last season. And ugh, sad. But all right, that's it for the Coast to Coast podcast. Hope you guys enjoyed our halfway point kind of recap. It was fun. And yeah, we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next week going over everything going down in week 9.
All right. Peace out, folks.
Signing off. Peace.